It's an absolute joy to be here. And years ago, so I'll tell you a few stories. Years ago, my family moved from Guyana, South America. So my last name is Dutch, Van Sluytman. But I'll tell you the one story first, then the second story, and then I'm going somewhere with this. So in 1969, my family moved from Guyana, South America. It was British. In 66, we got independence, so it is Guyana. At any rate, we moved to Canada. We moved to Toronto. And in my grade 3 class, a Dutch boy came into class, and everyone thought that I was a Dutch girl, which I was not. I have a very old Dutch name. At any rate, his name was Richard. And when Ryan and I were walking this morning, I was thinking, you know what's really funny? That little boy, and of course I was a little girl, in the class, we had show and tell. You know, you bring something to show to the class, to tell who you are, usually about your country, your family. Anyway, Richard, he brought a book from Holland, and in this book, he said, well, I have this book, and it starts with the ending, because people generally like to go to the end first. They want to know what's going to happen. And we were walking over here today, and I thought, well, ever since I met Richard, when I was in grade 3, I do that. I go to the end of the book, and I thought, if anybody in the talk today wants to leave early, I'm going to start at the end. That's what I'm going to do. So, I'm going to give you a word. It is that word, Sawbonna. So if anybody wants to run away, they've had enough, they need another sandwich, they have to go to the bathroom, you can leave now, and you're good. Sawbonna. Sawbonna. It means, I see you. It means shared humanity. It is a Zulu word. It's a Zulu word. It's a greeting. Hello, how are you doing? But it means, I am greeting the soul, the soul. It's similar to Ubuntu, but I think it's a little deeper. We are in shared humanity. Hello, but I see you, not just your body, but I see your soul, and I see our connection. Now, how did I come to this word? Well, let's just do it this way. I was at where was I? Oh, at the Peace Palace yesterday, losing my mind. I was so excited to be there. Who do I bump into? Anyone want to guess? A+. Okay, it's someone a little older than Richard, Erasmus. Meaning, I get to the Peace Palace, and I'm seeing Erasmus, and I'm losing my mind. Erasmus of Rotterdam, where my family came from in the 1600s, greeted me at the Peace Palace. And I started to cry because I thought, my whole life is a journey of stories. It's a journey of meaning-making. It's a journey of meaning-taking. And this man is very important to me because he, a Christian humanist, and he was shaking up society with his thoughts, with his writing, and his hat is similar to my black beret, so that made me happy too. So here's the thing. My family left Rotterdam in the 1600s, and they went over to South America. Great, grand, and groovy. I saw a fella yesterday riding a bicycle, and it was the twin of my grandfather Van Sluytman, who was 4th generation Guyanese. I was losing my mind. So you're all going, what is this woman talking about? Here's what I'm talking about. We moved from Guyana to Canada, 1969, for a better life. Great life. Guyana politically a little messed up, you know? We went there, and on Easter Monday, March 27, 1978, my father was murdered. He was murdered in an armed robbery, callous, selfish, brutal act, and all of our lives changed. All of our lives changed. I have always read and I have always written. In Guyana, we did not have television, so we wrote. My parents got books for us, and we read. After my dad was murdered, a friend of mine, I went to an all-girls Catholic school, Notre Dame, in Toronto, and a friend of mine in class, she gave me a book called A Nothing Book. And she said to me, write. Write your grief. Write your pain. Write your healing. And I began to write. I wrote before that, but I wrote, my journal. I met a boy today, and he's so cute, he's adorable, but he doesn't like me, and, stuff like that. But I started to write my voice of healing and meaning. When my dad was killed, I lost my capacity to study. I was quite groovy in high school. I always had really good marks. Daddy, his name is Theodore Van Sluytman. When Dad was killed, I lost all of that. The writing gave me a way to articulate meaning, and in so doing, to birth, just recently, Athabasca calls it, Sawbonna, justice as lived experience, which is both a new model of restorative justice and a new social justice model. The reason this matters to me is because I did not finish this paper until I was 50 years old. I'm now 57 and I have 4 grandkids, and I thought my life had ended when my dad was murdered. I did meet his murderer. We did share powerful healing. We're not working together at this point. We did a few things together, and that was very positive, because then it helped a lot of people, and it helps a lot of people knowing that's a possibility. It is not a requirement, but it happened, and it's shifted both of our lives in many, many poignant ways. So, besides, I received the Alumnus of Distinction from Athabasca last year, which is a huge blessing, a huge blessing. 2 years before that, my college, I went to a college in Toronto called Centennial College. I studied book editing and book designing. And 2 years ago, they gave me the Alumnus of Distinction for the college. Then that same year, they asked me if I would teach a course there. And I felt like I won a lottery, because the course is called Global Citizenship. And I love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. My undergrad, which I finished at 38, is in philosophy. So Erasmus and I are friends. I love this openness of language and meaning making and, digging in the mud. And what I call going back to les racines, going to the roots, going to the roots. And writing invites us to go to the roots. Justice invites us to go to the roots, and global citizenship is a course that I believe with all of my heart invites us to go to the roots and below the roots. So when I thought about, what will I speak of today? What will I speak of today? Well, again, for me as a poet, I look for image, I look for metaphor, I look for symbol, look for color. I see red in here and I'm so happy I just want to fly, and I see sandwiches, that makes me happy too. But I've been traveling for the last 5 months. I've been teaching online. I had the privilege to do so I could teach my global citizenship courses online. And I've been traveling. I've had several interviews with CBC radio in Canada. And before the one that I had in Calgary, so that was the last one I had one in Thunder Bay, one in Edmonton. I was doing this work in all of them. Calgary. So Reineke said to me, we were chatting, and she says, Margot, you know what? You've just gone back to your roots. And the reason she said that is because we recognize how much our work is overlapping. We met in 2007, and we met before I was even thinking about restorative justice or criminal justice or social justice. I always thought about justice. I've been thinking about justice since I think it was about 4. I've always thought about it. So then we sat down and talked about the fact of the overlap of reflexive writing for personal development, and of course the overlap that I've been making, as relating it to justice. Because it was writing my voice that took me into the place of being able to articulate victim voice in social and restorative justice paradigm. So, when I think about the reflexive writing, this is what I tell my students in relation to global citizenship. I say education is great, grand, and groovy, and it's intricately related to justice. As teachers, as students, I see actually the teacher-student relationship as like a spiral. We are dancing. We are in co-creative dance and co-creative relationship, And when Ryan speaks about, as teachers, we stand up and we say our stuff, And then we're like giving you information. But when I'm teaching my students, the majority of them international students from very different cultures. They come to Canada, you know, they're at the college. This is marvelous. A lot of them feel sort of removed. It's kind of like they're waiting, you know. Like when we were immigrants, it was the same thing. It was the same thing. My mom and dad were not, let's just say it was difficult being immigrants. Let's just put it this way. But Canada has changed quite a lot as well. So I hope to God it's not as difficult for immigrants now. At any rate, when I'm with my students and I see them being really nervous, then this is what I tell them. Look, it's really easy. All of us has a story. We all have a life. We all have family. We have two eyes. And they go, well, duh, we know that. That's not that complicated. I said, no, you're not listening to me. We have two eyes. Okay? There's the eye. So me, as, you know, teacher, I'm looking at you. Guess what? You're looking back at me. You know, we're sort of being what people call objective. I'm not a big believer in all this objective stuff, I got to tell you. I write about my master's too. But we're looking out. We're looking out there. And we're making judgments, making assumptions, feeling things out, all right? And that's fine. That's how we start to connect, if you will. But there's the other eye that we have. This person, with beauty, with banality, with fear, with experience, with yearning. And as a student, particularly in global citizenship, we are engaged in shared humanity. We are engaged in shared humanity. And how do we come to understand what that means? I've got my textbook. I always say, well, it's their textbook. Well, this is mine. But I say to them, look, this is how big the textbook is. 8 chapters. 8 chapters. What is it? 200 pages? It's so tiny you cannot imagine. I said, this book is this big. You're all in here. Because we are speaking about relationship. We talk about sexism. We talk about gender issues. We talk about media, which is a huge, crucial one. We're seeing it happening in the world today. What's going on in media, what's not going on in media. So I say to them, you are absolutely vital to this course. It's not me giving you information because I'm so great, grand, and groovy. I'm only great, grand, and groovy on Thursdays. Every other day, don't even talk to me. I'm horrible. Horrible. So they want to be in class on Thursday. But the thing is this. I bring up the two eyes because I can see my students. They're sitting there sort of going, here, this course is compulsory, by the way, okay? So Centennial College, it's compulsory. Nobody leaves without it. So right away, a lot of students are going, why do I have to do this? I'm here for, like, engineering. What is wrong with you? And I'm like, I hate it. And at least one class I get, yes? I hate this course. I'm like, thank you for sharing. I love it. Tell me what you need. You need to pass. And if you hate it, you can also go up to admin and tell them, I hate it. Like, I mean, I say that to my students, honestly, because that would be me. If I hated it, I'd be going up and saying, well, I don't like it. But then we talk about the I and where we go. Like, we make choices. 2 days ago, I was speaking with, Ryan's sister, Charlene, and she told me, she used a word with me that I thought was really important. Really important. And again, it relates to voice, to agency, to how we recognize that things aren't happening out there. Reflexivity, the reflexive writing, Sawbonna, it reminds us it's here. And it's a flow, right? So Charlene said, she was explaining to a niece of hers about time zones, and her niece couldn't get it. So she said to her, look, it's just like this. We make agreements. This time zone thing is an agreement we've made with each other on how to do it. So we say, okay, you okay with this? You good with it? Okay. So let's do this because it'll give us all like a lens through which to look at our stuff. To me, that is what global citizenship invites. That's what Sawbonna invites. That's what shared humanity. It's like we make an agreement. We make an agreement. We are citizens of the world. And what does that mean? Well, it generally means we have a story. We're sharing a story together. You've got your story. You share it with me. We're in shared humanity. I see you. And then I don't really understand. Can you please help? And I link it. I link education with justice, with shared humanity. And I go back to the roots. That's how I do it. And the two crucial things that my students have to leave with, they must leave with three. They must leave with Sawbonna. They all leave with Sawbonna. Some of them make rocks and T-shirts. It's got Sawbonna. I'm really happy. It just means I see you. Shared humanity, you know. They must leave with something else. Reflexive writing, and critical thinking. And we bring that everywhere we go. Everywhere we go. And when I go back to murder, my father's murder, you know, what saved me was the pen to the paper. What saved me was people like Erasmus, people like Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning, because he put his pen to the paper. So I never see, like I had a 2-hour conversation with Desmond Tutu 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I was in Cape Town. I had emailed him before I left, and his people answered me back. And it was I wasn't expecting it. And then they said, well, you know, you can come and go to the Mass and say sign of the peace and goodbye and have a picture and say goodbye. He grabs my hand and we shake hands and he goes, come for coffee. Okay, come for coffee. He's the most wonderful person. He's very down to earth. He told me a couple of things that I will never forget. He said to me, I said, how did you keep your faith? How did you keep your faith in humanity through all of that brutality? Would anyone like to take a guess? You're not allowed to say because you know. Any guesses? So, Desmond Tutu, Brenda Madiba, Mandela, you know, involved in truth and reconciliation. Margot, I did not. Margot, I did not. He said, my community, my family, my friends helped me when my faith seemed to fail. He said, I did not do it alone. So, some of you might be thinking, what in God's name does this have to do with Sawbonna and reflexive writing? It is about story, it's about community, it's about support, and it's about two eyes. We look at each other, we come back to ourselves, and then we go into, I see you. We're in shared humanity. We're in shared humanity. We're in it together. And none of us do it alone. And as teachers, you see, the first time I went to university, I was 19 years old. 19 years old. I went to study English and philosophy. I thought I was going to drop down dead because I couldn't stand it. Why? Because it was like this, right? I'm the prof, you're like this, and I'm telling you what to do, and you do that. And second year now, I was in my English class. We're reading Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. It's a book that I love. It's like reading a painting. It's like reading a painting, and we had to dissect it. And I remember the name of my prof. She was fantastic. Heather. Heather said to me, she said, she asked me a question. I just started to cry. I said, I don't want to do that. That's not what the book is for, huh? It's not like, I could feel it. I could feel it, this whole book going through me. And I ended up leaving, but one thing stayed with me. A recognition that somehow emotions weren't kind of allowed. Like, I felt really weird, I must tell you, and I'm sure people were feeling really weird because she's just asking you a question about talking about, this book, and I'm like, but it's not really about that. It's a painting. You have to sit with this book. If you tear it apart, you're losing something, But I was taking another course, so that one, Heather was lovely. She said, you should go into acting. Yeah, and she said it really kindly. She said, you have all of these emotions. She said, you should take it out there. But that was not for me. But I fell in love with philosophy. And my philosophy teacher looked like your typical, well, in my mind, typical philosophy teacher, beard and all this. Just a wonderful man. But, he said something to me that relates to me, to the critical thinking, to global citizenship, and to reflexive writing. Because I was telling him, I said, look, 2 years ago my dad was murdered, my life is destroyed, I don't know what to do. I said, I'm taking a course because I want answers. I want answers. This is what he said to me. He goes, Margot, it is rare that you're going to find an answer. He said, but I've got to tell you, you ask really good questions. I say that because, again, reflexive writing is also part of that. It's part of that I, like you're looking out, you're meeting students, you're meeting your professors, we're meeting each other, so you're looking and you're going like this, and you're going, well, I can't stand her guts because, I don't know, maybe she's not the same color as me, or, I don't know, I don't like your eyes. Why? We start to ask questions, we start to open up, we ask about shared humanity, and that's where Sawbonna comes in. Sawbonna, shared humanity. Every first class that I go into, I only have these students once, right, because they have to pass it and get out of town. I know that arguments are going to happen in the class. They do. They do, because we're talking politics, we're talking gender, and there are lots of different cultures. Day one, I say to my students, I put the word on the board. I say, you see that word? Write it down, tattoo it on your hand. It means shared humanity. In here, we're going to quarrel. You guys are going to get your emotions going crazy. I situate my global citizenship course on Sawbonna because there we come back there. That's the crucible. That holds the conversation. It holds the eyes. It holds different stories that we may not understand. And it situates us into a place that I believe that education is absolutely, intricately, and integrally connected, which is justice. Which is justice. We're involved in it all the time. All the time. And I just read a quote, it's an old one by Desmond, by Arch. It's, if you say that I'm not involved in any political, it's for them. I'm not involved with it. He said, if you say that you're not involved with it, he said, it's like, I'm very bad at telling these things. It's not really a joke, but it's not a joke. But he says, it's like the elephant's foot is on a mouse's tail. The mouse cares. He said, to say that you're not involved, that's what sort of saying I'm not involved in any political things that are going on. I'm not involved in justice. My voice doesn't matter. The big people are going to go and do it out there. He says, no. No. When you say you're not involved, then you've chosen the side of the oppressor. And for me, education is about that. For me, our writing with our two eyes is connected to that. And to me, global citizenship is a course that's connected to that. And Erasmus said, like Socrates, my very favorite philosopher, by the way, and would anybody like to know why Socrates is my favorite philosopher? Yeah? How many words did he write? Pardon me? None, exactly. He's my favorite philosopher because he wrote nada. And the reason it matters is because in not writing, then there's a paradox about it. He said, I am a citizen of the world. I'm a citizen of the world, and that's what global citizenship is about. That's what Sawbonna is about. That's what shared humanity is about. And would you like to know what Mr. Erasmus said? I think he wrote it down. I am a citizen of the world. That's what Sawbonna is. That's what it means. We are in shared humanity. We are connected. We are connected by our stories, by our narratives, by our experiences. We are connected by justice, by injustice, by agency, by voice. And I will tell you what I see my students doing, because, of course, teaching is agreement, and it's also a trust factor. So automatically, a lot of them don't want to take it. They're scared, right? I mean, I remember being young. I'm almost 60 now. I got 4 grandkids. I'm not as scared as I used to be. But I look back and I'm thinking, oh, my God, and then the language is different. The country is different. There are economic things that people are dealing with. I say to them, here's the thing. Remember one thing. You have a voice. You have a voice. And you can use that voice. Not everybody is in agreement with you, but you need to know it you need to know who you are. You need to know what you believe in. If somebody is really aggravating your soul, as my mom would say, aggravating your soul, yes, West Indian accent, you need to know why. Why? You need to know how that will inform your decisions. You need to know how that informs your studies. I gave a lecture once at Simon Fraser University. A friend and colleague of mine, Dr. Brenda Morrison, Pettigrew is another one, but Morrison says to me, she says, Margot, I know you're coming in to talk about Sawbonna and restorative justice, but this is what I want you to do. Kind of like what today is about. She says, remind my students they have a voice. Remind them. Remind them that you wrote that because you remembered you had a voice. Remind them that as they're sitting in this classroom, I'm not heavy-handed. I'm not telling them remind them that they matter. And that's what I try to give to my students. Because quite frankly, just the fact and the honor that I have students means I matter. And my responsibility is to make sure that everyone in there is Sawbonna'd, is seen, recognizes that together we are in this dance, complicated, complex, demanding, painful, many, many times. This Sawbonna Justice as Lived Experience, I will tell you, it's also autoethnographic research methodology. Do you guys know what autoethnography is? It's using your story for research. Now that may sound really easy, but I had to have two supervisors. Dr. Dale Dewhurst, fantastic, brilliant, kind, generous, brilliant man. He made me rewrite my thesis proposal. I think it was 76 times, seven times. And Dr. Carolyn Riddell, both of Athabasca. The reason I chose that is because I related justice to a lived experience. My father's murder, meeting his murderer, understanding that in the justice paradigm, there's restorative justice, there's transformative justice, there are all of these things, and they all feel to me like checking boxes. People doing amazing work, but to me, I wrote that because we need to situate it in something connected to shared humanity, something that doesn't say we're part of simply a system. And justice can often do that to us. Teaching can do that to us. And the gift that we have with global citizenship is that we do say, it's in the textbooks, we say it, we are citizens of the world. That does not mean we necessarily like each other or want to hang out together. However, where do we draw the line in terms of relating? How do we do it? How do we do it? As teachers, are we using our two eyes? Are we doing that? Do we forget that? Well, we're also human as well, so of course we do. But we remind each other. And one way to do it is the writing. A lot of my students, when they're really scared because their English it's not the greatest, let's put it this way. I'm not sure if mine is either, but we'll just pretend it is, thank you. I tell them free write. I just say free write your voice, free write, because the second that we feel respected, it makes a big difference. It makes a big difference. And I never want any of my students to feel that somehow I've got the great big answers. I got stuff I got to cover. But we are in a dance. It's always a dance. It's always a dance. And the work that you do, Ryan, I mean, we've talked about this for years and years. Voice matters. Agency. You know what agency means? Agency, not sure? My students usually ask that when agency. You have, I'll say it, power. It is your power. At a talk I gave in Thunder Bay in, January 6th, Feast of the Epiphany, this wonderful lady, Marianne, this much older woman, she said to me, she goes, well, here's the thing. I mean, there are people, she said some names, and she did put me on the list, and it kind of threw me. I thought, really? But she says people who can do the talking, who go out there, who do that stuff. She goes, what about us? That, we're not called to do that. We don't have those, we can't do that. I said, don't be giving me excuses, little sister. Each of us has a gift, first of all, and each of us has a voice. And how we use that, what does it relate to? Shared humanity. Not good, better, best. It's not the hierarchy. We're in the dance, and each of us has something that we could bring to our students, that our students bring to us, that we bring within justice. And I will go to my grave saying that education and justice are siblings. They are connected. And as a teacher, that is my responsibility. As a mother, that is my responsibility. As a grandmother, that is my responsibility. When I sit and I have an interview, that is my responsibility. So, yes, please. Thank you. Well, yes. Well, here's the thing. For me, I can only speak to Margot. For me, shared humanity is this. I don't like you. You don't like me. I'm not allowed to harm you, because at the bottom of our humanity is love. So we can have conversations without harming each other emotionally, physically. So it is, let's go to, I will go back to Erasmus. I'm not being funny, but I'll put it within this context. My favorite words by him are these: vocatus atque non vocatus Deus aderit. Invoked or not, God is present. Okay? So that means you believe in God, you don't believe in God, it doesn't matter. God is present. It doesn't matter. Sawbonna is, as opposed to forgiveness, if you will. I'll forgive you for murdering my dad, and now you can move on. I'll forgive myself because I'm just a biatch, and now I can move on. Sawbonna is, I am. I am human, and I am in shared humanity. I don't have to do a thing. I am in it. I am in it. And what that rests on is love. That's what it is. It's simply a way of being. It's a way of being. And that's why when I bumped into Erasmus there, I was in tears, because I thought, boy, I needed to see you today. Because you remind me, Sawbonna is. Ryan and I have spoken about this because I gave a talk for the Forgiveness Project in London last week. It was one of the talks I was doing there. And it was quite funny, because a friend of mine said, how can you give a talk on forgiveness when you don't believe in forgiveness? I like to be provocative. Forgiveness is great, grand, and groovy. However, victims of crime feel very put upon. Unless you forgive that rapist, you can't move on, girl. But once you do it, you is free. I'm like, really? Are you kidding me? Okay. Then you say to the rapist, well, unless that chick forgives you, honey, you ain't moving on. It's like a pressure thing, you know. People do it, and I think it is beautiful. I don't think it is harmful. Sawbonna, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to do anything. We're humans, and we're in this dance. We're in this ride, like Erasmus. Vocatus atque non vocatus Deus aderit. You know how many victim centers I've gone to? How many jails I've gone to, and I get the same question, do you believe in God? I said, I don't know, but God seems to believe in me. I mean, I don't care. That's not my business. My business is this. It is love. So that's how I do it. It's quite simple, probably quite... Yeah, I like it. I like it. I see you. I see you. I see you. We're in shared humanity. And one way that I can see you even better, the work that Reineke offers, this thing, then I see you with not one eye, with two eyes. That's what it means. That's the nutshell version. I can send you the link as well. Any questions? Olivier?
I see you, but when you're writing,
Mm-hmm.
And if it's the writing, which is doing that, or more the telling story.
Is it the writing that has you seeing?
The action of writing itself, or is it more like doing the writing for the story, but doing that?
Oh yes, listen. Okay, so one of my daughters, Jessica, loves cheesecakes. No word of a lie. She makes like a really good cheesecake, and that gives her a lot of joy. If it's making cheesecakes, and I'm a papier mâché artist as well, I make pretty damn good papier mâché. Gives me joy. Gives me joy. No, it is, but with the work that Ryan does, with the work that I have done for years and years and years, in which the personal, autoethnography, is the political, autoethnography, then the writing works, and it works for a lot of people. I was at Polesmore Prison. Nelson Mandela lived in Polesmore for 8 years. I spent 3 hours at Polesmore working with young fellas, young fellas, okay? Would you like to know how many of them could write? Probably none. So do you know what we did? What we're going to do now. We're going to do an exercise. We'll do an exercise now, which will involve writing, or the other thing, talking or coloring. We don't have colors to do this, but there's a little exercise I'd like to do which answers your question. No, I've been to places where people can't write. But conversation, somebody sitting and looking at you, regarding you in the room. You're actually in the room. You're not just a number. You're not just there for, to do my paycheck. Or to make mom and dad happy because you're going to get your degree. You're in the room. We're in this dance together. So, no. The writing is one way. We have found it effective. You know, there are lots of people that find it effective, but no, you don't have to do that. Of course, singing and dancing, art therapy, another colleague and friend of mine, she takes the dogs in with children that have been abused. And they work. They work. But it's the relationship, eh? I write about that in my master's, interrelationality. It's relationship. And like Desmond Tutu said, we're not doing it alone. And we connect with people who give us fire, passion, food, desire, yearning, want. And do not make fun when we're angry. And don't tell us to have our tears wiped away because it's better. No, they accept. We sit together. So, yes. Thank you for your question. Yes. Yes? Yes. I'll tell you what. What ends up happening is that because it is in a college, in a school like here, it is within a framework. So there's an expectation, you know, and because people are immigrants, they choose that country. The expectation often is because Canada has been chosen, that is the good country. Well, I have another story, which is, yes, it is a very good country. My father was murdered there. We're from the bad country, but my dad, who did yoga and yogurt and garlic and jogging before people even knew it existed, was a dead man. And he had great teeth, you know? So, what I do, what I invite, is the space for them then to speak about their experience, their culture, their faith. You know, I invite it, and then we talk and we listen. And they generally work in groups, and then they do that within the groups. So that's how it happens. It doesn't end up being like a free-for-all, because there is a container. That's the container. But I'm very clear with my students. I say, but you're going to get angry. Tears are going to fall. It's not a crime, you know, but you cannot be disrespectful to somebody, you know. Or sometimes they are. Look, I am disrespectful lots of times, you know. But then you can say, you can bring it back and also speak about that. So, yeah, it happens. It happens. But I must tell you, they're conscious, and if they're not conscious, I always say, remember. You are in Canada the good, okay, quotation marks. But remember, don't fall into some understanding that somehow this la stuff is going to happen around you. You are still involved in it. You are involved in it. And when I say to my students who say to me, I hate this course, I don't want to take it, I'm like, here's the thing. That's important to know. And then discern, decipher what you're going to do with that. The likelihood that you will not be able to take it is slim, because you have made an agreement with the college. I'm at this college, and the college has said to you, we're going to teach you. We get some groovy profs, ain't it great? But you're going to do this course. But I don't say it jokingly at all, eh? Like I say, no, but go and speak to admin. Go and talk to them. So no, it's room for all of it, and it's also really being, I'm going to use this word, I can't believe you're going to be shocked when I use this word, Ryan. It's also being very practical. You know, we are in this room. We have these conversations. There is also a crucible. There is a context. You're at the college to do a 3 or 4 year degree or diploma. What do you want? So we have them. Does that explicate for you? Well, through the, I can't, I mean, the concrete is like you asking me a question. If I go and they say, what did that lady ask you? I'm like, well, she asked the question about concrete. I mean, to have concrete is to have a tape of telling you what they do. They simply speak. They say, this is the good, this is the bad, this is my faith. Sometimes they compare with Canada. So the concreteness is in what the people are saying. I don't record what they say. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm not understanding what you're saying. Oh, you know what? Oh, no, I know what you're saying. Oh, geez. Yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, Moses. I apologize, of course. Well, here's the thing. 8 little chapters. Piece of cake. Ready? Where is it? Page, whatever the hell it is. Oh, no, they're specific. Oh, my God. Chapter 1, Global Citizenship, from theory to application. Welcome. Chapter 2, a critical analysis of global citizenship. Chapter 3, social analysis for social change. This is the big chapter. Anyone who has to do projects on this one, it's the biggest one, but it's the best. Chapter 4, applying concepts and frameworks. I think these are the things that you're perhaps asking. They're specific. Media literacy. So they're containers, all of these things. Understanding identity. Tracing history. Equity, equality, and inequality in Canada. They could do that in relationship to their own experience, their country, their relationship to other countries, because a lot of them move to different countries as well. And then the last one, which is the key, making a difference through social action. These are the containers, and then there's several questions. I mean, it's really and truly, it's a thin book, but there's lots and lots of information, and I give them many choices, so within the groups. Does that answer better, maybe? And no? Okay, yeah. No, I really want to understand.
But it's more in relation to their personal experience?
Yes. The majority, yes. Majority of my students are immigrants. Yeah. Well, they're very, very varied. They're very varied. And I tell you, that question that you're asking, I ask on my final exam, I ask a question. It's worth like 20 marks or something. They can never fail it. They can never fail it because it's what you are asking. I ask, what does global citizenship mean to you? What have you learned in this class in relation to that? How will you take it out into the world? What is it that you'd like to see more of? It's like a 5-part question, and everyone gets 100% on it unless they don't come to class. It's exactly that. For me, that is the key way, because there are specific tests I must do with them. There are assignments they must do. So it's also the assignments that are done. They choose. So they will choose one of those. They will choose racism, gender, our Truth and Reconciliation in Canada, which is huge, that a lot of people don't know about. It is quite big, quite prominent and important. Another reason why Sawbonna matters. I've spoken with Canada's Justice Minister about it, with senators about it. But yes, that great, yes, they come to it. That's really the container, the last few questions. And among the assignments that they get about identity, racism, gender is a big one. Gender is a big one because different cultures have very different relationships, even to a female teacher. But they don't know how strict I am. I do not take disrespect. I don't give it, but I will not receive it. But that happens as well. It's given. I mean, it's, So I think that's the crucial way. That's the crucial, because, there's also something else that's very interesting in relation to that question. A lot of students don't want to divulge in the class. They don't want to say in the class. So I hear stories. One of my students is now doing, I think she here, a Turkish student, that's all I will say, but she's doing her PhD now. But her life journey with all of that, because there's a lot of that as well. Yeah. My end game with this course, as I said, is very simple. They leave knowing Sawbonna, they can research it, and I'm clear, they know it. They come in, they leave, that's it. I put it on the exams, they know it. The other end game is the self-reflexive writing, the critical thinking. You have agency, you have power, you have a voice. You have a voice. You can use it. You can use it. So that's my end game. My end game is, yeah. And for them to feel safe, to be quite honest with you. Because a lot of them don't necessarily feel safe. A lot of the women don't. They don't. And well, it's my responsibility. Yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. Yes, Joe. I know, Joe. Anyway, we'll talk about Red Bush Rooibos later. Yes.
The justice that I know, there is justice where rapists are almost killed because of their crime in townships, and that's
Indeed.
South Africa with justice. So I think it's very important to probably listen to the fact that justice is different.
Very different. Yes. Do you know how many students have said to me, you met and shared healing with your dad's murderer? You did work together for a time? Unacceptable. He would be a dead man. He would be a dead man. Yeah. I get that a lot. Students just look at me and go, you're weird, man. I probably am, but that's okay. That's a whole different point. But yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, those kinds of conversations actually, because... Yes, of course. I ask them, I simply make conversation like I'm making now. That's what I do, within the framework of the context that I must articulate so my students can get their marks. So my faculty will say, you're doing your job. So I throw things out there with questions and they answer if they want to. If they want to. So it is not my goal. Like I'm not, you must tell me. I share. This is the reason why the two eyes matter to me. I don't share my story because I think I'm the biggest, thing in the world. What I know, and I've learned from a lot of elders in Canada with whom I have spent time, hence my spirit name, Raven Speaks. You tell your story to elicit somebody telling their story back. That's it. If they tell it back to you, if they want to talk about the indignities, the positive, the beautiful, they can do that. For me, that has never been my expectation. If they do, they do. When they do in private, it is between Margot and her student. I am not going, So that is what it is for me. So yeah, that's it. That's it. Wherever I go, wherever I'm doing, where I go, it's about sharing story because I have learned from elders, but I've also believed this since I was a child, that stories matter. They invite you in safely. Then, something is going on here, 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 and here. It does not necessarily have to be an academic thing for me. In fact, to me, I've struggled with academia, to be quite honest. I've done everything, pull my hair out, my lead supervisor, Dr. Dale Dewhurst, I said, Dale, I'm not doing this. This is just not my world, man. I'm a poet, and this is not for me. He goes, knock it off. You can be a poet and academic at the same time. So I'm dancing a very fine line, because for me, it is relationship. It is relationship. And I will tell you this, the work that Reineke does, I respect it profoundly, because I will tell you, like Sawbonna, I'm going to use this language, and I apologize if I sound arrogant, but it is cutting-edge work. This work never would have been accepted. Poetry therapy, writing for development and healing, never been accepted. And since, we have the last few months, we've been working really closely together, because we both recognize we've both gone back to our roots. Language, words, story, heart. These things matter. The talking, it's not necessarily, even if I was, you can laugh. If I was doing brain surgery, I want my brain surgeon to know what to cut, This kind, but I want him to have a heart. Remember we did the Yeah, we did the, the arts and healing and medicine there. I gave a talk for doctors. Ryan has done it too. You go to doctors and you say, like, you talk about poetry, you talk about writing. Two eyes. Olivier.
Question for the patient here.
Sure.
Attending last week, patient for
Okay.
one of the questions was how to deal with a teacher
Mm-hmm.
with
Mm-hmm. That's kind of what you do, Michael. Yes.
Statistics show that 8%
At least one which? Okay, yes. 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 Yes.
How does it work? It's about hitting the fire and then breathe, or if it's not accepted.
I'll tell you this. I'm going to give you a story. When I go into jails, and I've worked with sex offenders, the big ones, you know, people will say, like, I would never do it. I never thought I would do it, but I was invited to do it. And Sawbonna says, Margot, you must do it if you're in shared humanity. So I've gone to, you know, this is what I'm going to say. When I go into jails, I never ask to see their files. I can see them if I want. I don't. And I don't do it for two reasons. Same with being a teacher. And perhaps being an older woman, a person that's lived a lot of life. I don't want to know that information because I want to meet that person where they are. I want to meet them where they are. I want to see that. And as far as trauma goes, okay, I have learned that people you'll be able to feel it, you'll be able to see it, and I have seen people look at files and judge people based on the file, not sitting down and, you know, saying, did you want to have a coffee or something? Not giving the room. So it is not, I don't have concrete methodology in terms of, that's the other thing with what I do. I'm not looking to, like restorative justice, like criminal justice, fill out the form and then you're in. No, we are in relationship and we are dancing, and reflexive writing is about that. I'll tell you what we need, however, because I've been lobbying for this, trauma-informed law. Trauma-informed people sitting in those areas where they can actually feel, and they go, geez, I didn't know. Oh my God, Elaine, I got to go now. Like where there's a shared humanity, where people are feeling into the situation and knowing what's going on. I think it is very vital, because there's also something else that we have lost. We have lost. And I'm very particular about this. We do have a heart, and we do know, and we can feel those things. So if a teacher sees something, we can go and say. That does not necessarily mean that anything is going to be done. It happens with the police. You know how many victims jump out a window because nobody gives... I'm going to tell you, because nobody gives a care. I tried to kill myself. I'm not the only one. Lots of people do. Where are the supports? Where? We either create them, we find them, we make them, we look for them. And as teachers, I am responsible, as a person in the world, I'm responsible for these things. I'm in relationship. We're in relationship. Right now, we're in relationship. So that is my answer, you know. And what Desmond Tutu said to me, the reason it stays with me is this. So, Desmond Tutu. Sounds like a big name, right? Big fancy guy. Big fancy guy. What did he say? My faith didn't help me, man. You know, Jesus was on a hitchhike. It was my neighbors. Community is extremely important. None of us will do this alone. So, you know, Anna, you work on that. You were there in Ireland. So there are a bunch of people working there. We have pockets of community, people that we work better with. And that is also a crucial thing, having the supports, having the teams, creating them. So this may not sound politically correct, but I don't have a big faith in all the big fancy people. I have faith in when people gather together. The Agora of Socrates, that's the other reason I love Socrates, because they sat down. I mean, it was patriarchal, you know, men stuff. I won't go there. I do go there with my students. I won't go there with you. But but it was together, in community. We create the community. We create the spaces. I started my own publishing press in 2003. Why? Because there were specific things that I wanted to see and that I wanted to publish. And because also I had a wisdom woman, Gail Corbett. She said to me, do your own press. I said, but people are going to say these things about me. Well, she's not really a writer. She doesn't know what she's doing. And that's how I ended up meeting Peggy Heller, that Michael knows. That's how I ended up meeting Ryan. I was publishing my own stuff and I was publishing other people's stuff because I was creating a community with questions like that. Who the hell is doing it? And I always say to my students, my mom said to us as kids, you can complain once, I'll listen. You can complain twice, I'm listening. The third time you knock at my door, you come with a solution. That's my mom. Grade 6 education, smartest woman I know. Maybe close to her. Maybe close to you, Ryan. Very close, but that's about it. So that is, and if it sounds like I'm going to tell, people have argued with me because they think I'm like deking questions. No, I'm very clear. I look at where my feet are. What do you want, sister? What do you want? What do you want? What do you want to be? What is it that you need? Like Mommy says, no, once, twice, a third time, tell me what you're doing. These things happen all the time. I was an assistant at a school in Calgary with refugee students. I must tell you, the teacher and I did not get along that well because there was a lot of, they need to fill out that. I mean, she was well-meaning, but it didn't work for me, man. I'm like, okay, this kid needs you now. He doesn't need So again, that is my answer, You bet it's a guideline. If you want to use it as guideline, it is. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. But I am not.
It sounds like it's more invitation go back to school and get Sawbonna.
No, you don't have to do anything and do Sawbonna. You're in it right now, first of all. And I make I'm really clear about this. I'm really clear. And I know I annoy many people and I make many people laugh and some people get it, which is, we're in shared humanity. We are always creating conversation. What is it that I want my conversation to impart? I am not interested in filling out forms for shared humanity. The only reason I wrote this, I didn't have to do a master's. I didn't have to do it. And I was going to quit. I'm like, do I really need this hassle, man? But I had some amazing, Athabascas, I could sell Athabasca. They're great. No. I only did it because if I have a master's and, I've got a 3.9 GPA, somebody's going to listen to me. I was doing this work way before anything. I was doing it way before anything, through poetry. That's the only reason I did a master's. And I love Dr. Dale Dewhurst because when I was going to leave, I was going to say, I feel that I'm at the mercy of these professionals. I'm not a professional. I'm a poet. I am a poet. They want the language. I will give them the language. Athabasca liked it. They called it a new model of restorative justice, not me. I call it Sawbonna. That is a blessing. Because how else do we meet people unless we're speaking a similar language? But for me, the only language we're speaking is shared humanity. That's the only language we're speaking, and we meet people where they are at. Yeah. Yes. Mm-hmm. 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 Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Bah. Let it happen. Well, can I say what we've been doing? Thank you. So Ryan's partner just died on November 16th. We've been working together with this, and I stayed with her for 6 weeks, and she ended up writing a book of poetry. She's working on what's called the Widow Project right now, languaging for death and healing and forgiveness and Sawbonna and all of these things. And to speak about that, again, folks would think, oh, she talks about murder, she's talking about death. She doesn't do it for that reason, and I don't do it for that reason. But Ryan, respectfully, we love each other, we know each other. At this point, this is part of Reinike's journey. It is unpacking, unfolding, renegotiating who community is, how to articulate with her students, with herself, with her friends, And I say this with the utter respect. This is a person I respect. She's much younger than me, and she's been doing brilliant, brilliant work for a very long time. And we met. Reinike didn't know this when we met, but I considered myself a loser. And I considered myself a loser. My father was murdered. There was not a thing for victims. Not one single thing. There's something now called restorative justice, where it is only now and ever so slowly beginning to recognize that victims also have a voice, also have agency, can write, research, can inform research, not just as grieving idiot losers, but people with a voice that can create and build and be community. And this thing here was supposed to be actually a thesis on therapeutic writing. And as I was doing it, I was at a conference, and a young woman gave a talk, and this was at a restorative justice conference, and this is the name of her talk: How Murder Saved My Life. How Murder Saved My Life. And then she proceeded to tell the story that her brother murdered someone, and that she discovered restorative justice, and that was really groovy. I raised my hand and said, how do you think the mom of the murdered child might feel with a title like that? How Murder Saved My Life. I didn't ask it with this passion that I'm asking it now. But I said, how do you think the mom would feel? She says, I don't know. How murder saved my life. My kid is dead, and your brother murdered him, and you're here talking about how murder saved your life, but my 20-year-old is dead. I didn't say that, but I must tell you, I was freaking out. People in the audience looked at me now. Before I was the token victim who shared healing with the murderer. I was the token victim, okay? During that dialogue, somebody stands up and yells at me, but she's a victim too. I'm like, you don't have to be a brain surgeon to figure it out. I'm asking a question. How would the mom... She said she didn't know. I got back home and I sent an email to Howard Zier, who's considered the father, a term I despise, and I've said to Howard, father is very patriarchal. I said, you're a pioneer in restorative justice. I said, tell me, if when we go into these justice things with our stories, unless we're friends with the murderer, unless we hug the rapist, we actually count in restorative justice. And he said, not a chance. It's not about that. So then I changed my thesis to Sawbonna, a new model. Again, Athabasca called it that. I wanted to tell my story. I support offenders and I support victims. And I think there's a place for all kinds of storying and all kinds of voice. So that's why I did that, because I wanted to give my experience. When I was no longer the token victim, I shared healing with the murderer. I was great for restorative justice. When I spoke about, but how about that person, then I was being told I was aggressive. But think about it. Your kid is murdered, she's laying in the ground, and somebody is saying how murder saved my life? That woman, now Ryan is younger than me, this woman is like 25 years younger than me. We have spoken, and she got it. I tell you how long it took her. She gave me a phone call 3 years ago. 3 years ago, and she said to me, I finally get what you mean. I finally get what you mean. But she didn't get it then. She thought somehow but of course she's carrying her own pain. We share a similar name. I'm Margot Elizabeth and she's Elizabeth, and So, but these are processes we go through. And I know. So what I did with that was autoethnographic, therapeutic writing, and down and dirty research. And that's about voice. And that's what global citizenship is about. Like Socrates said, Erasmus said, we are citizens of the world. We are in shared humanity. How do we invite conversations? And the last thing I will tell you, it is through community. It is what Arch. When he emailed me, he calls himself Arch. Arch said to me, no, I didn't do it alone, Margot. I didn't do it alone. My family, my friends, my community. And to me, that is the biggest, best solution. If you have 3 people working on the same goal, you're in. You make agreements to make a difference. Make agreements to actually have vital, conversations like that. It's not all about, oh my God, okay, so let's go do this now. I mean, some days you just don't want to will people in the head. They want to will you in the head. Community, shared humanity. We see each other. Love is the bottom line. That's the bottom line. We write our meaning. We write our meaning for ourselves and our students. Because justice matters, and it is connected to education, and it is in the crucible of Sawbonna. Gracias. I was going to give you a writing thing, but I don't think we have time. No, we don't. We don't. You see, you guys, you just kept talking. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your passionate story.
My pleasure.
I think
my pleasure.
You used a lot of words to remember. The 2 eyes, the shared humanity.
Thank you.
Also, Sawbonna, and you compared it also with Ubuntu, but you said Sawbonna is deeper than
Yes, it
Ubuntu.
is. Yes, it is.
Can you explain the difference?
I think Sawbonna there's something wider about it. It just feels wider and more open and more accepted. And I will also say, for me, Ubuntu feels a little bit religious. Sawbonna, no. It is this open, wide open field that Rumi talks about. There's something wide about it, Wate. Thank you. Yes.
You also said years ago you read Mrs. Dalloway.
Yes.
I was reading like a painting.
Yes.
And I thought I'm happy I have got a present about art. Paintings. And this is a book with we have a beautiful collection here at the Hague.
Oh, really?
And also a photograph. And this is an English book about our art collection.
No way, for me?
You.
Oh my Lord.
On behalf of the Hague University.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Pleasure. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Oh.
Paintings you already saw and you know how it is.
Thank you for putting Bolo, and thank you for ensuring
Yes.
You helped us so well organizing everything.
Thank you. Yes, thank you very much. Thank you. Yes, and everyone, thank you. Thank you.
So, and I think maybe you have time if people want to.
Oh, yes.
In person, you're here
Yes.
in a few moments.
I will be eating a sandwich, drinking water, but I can speak and eat. And chew gum.